Benjamin Weingarten was explaining there are three buckets of things you can't say that oppose the government or oppose the ruling class. So, Ben, tell us, who are the ruling class?
It's a great question. And I think you see the ruling class in who acted to crush dissent over the last year. So at the governmental level, we saw this crackdown on dissent codified in a few different ways. And this involves any number of agencies, the entire administrative state. Really. It included, for example, the National Security Council and all the other organs that it implicated in a so-called national strategy for countering domestic terrorism, which called for a whole of government and indeed whole of society effort to pursue people who dissented from the regime's narrative and to clamp down on so-called misinformation and disinformation, not like Russiagate or the nuking of the Hunter Biden story or a million other pieces of information or lab leak or other pieces of information that were not officially approved by the regime until some of them were. But of course, dissent from the regime's orthodoxy. You had, for example, the National Security, the Department of Homeland Security putting out these threat bulletins, talking about those potentially challenging, questioning election integrity in 2020 and draconian COVID policies and beyond as being threats to the homeland. And then, of course, you had the FBI and the DOJ and other authorities as well being threatened to be sicked on concerned parents across the country as well. So pretty much all of the federal authorities, and then, of course, the Biden administration itself, which advocated for private sector actors to get involved. And that includes big tech. I would say that includes woke capital, obviously our leading academic institutions, the medical establishment itself. Really, it's a whole slew of the commanding heights of society, as well as our political class, who all share an agenda of usurping maximum power, claiming that the dissenters from their orthodoxy are the real threat to democracy, when they themselves are not only anti-democratic, but acting in the very censorious and authoritarian fashion that they claim their political foes act in.
Yeah, there's no question. When you have Fauci lying to us, then he admits he lied to us, but then he declares he is the embodiment of science itself. And then, what if we common folk were to say some of the things that they ultimately say, like he recently said, a number of the people in the hospitals really don't have, they have COVID, but that's not why they're in the hospital. If I said that a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, ban him from YouTube, Twitter, and so forth. They really are, and they're dispiriting us because when we see this disillusionment from, they can say it, but we can't say it, it really is harming patriotic Americans. And I think the same thing, and you made the point, is that when you let the writers get off, the BLM writers get off scot-free, but then you go after the grandma and grandpa who walked peacefully through the Capitol, that really does cause people to lose faith in their country and really demotivates us.
Yeah, the two-tier justice system, which means no justice system, is incredibly demoralizing. I think it's intended to demoralize. It's to show us that there is no equality under the law. In fact, of course, the equity agenda is all about ensuring unequality under the law and in private life as well. It's all about punishing, pounding us into submission, chilling, intimidating, coercing, and the like. But I think that also itself betrays a weakness. And one of the things I argue towards the end of this piece is that the reality is that the ruling class, its entire narrative essentially is that the other side is horrible, deplorable, and a threat to democracy, et cetera, because their agenda is failing and they cannot even dare broach that agenda. Rampant inflation, supply chain issues, spiraling violent crime, a whole host of calamities, obviously the backlash to the draconian coronavirus policies, even in blue states, and the same thing around indoctrinating kids in racial Marxism in schools. The entire agenda has crumbled. They cannot hide that agenda. So all they can do is try to target, smear, and intimidate their political foes and to try to make it so that we're truly evil and deplorable, et cetera, when, of course, they're acting in the very way that they claim we are because they project. They always project. But I think it betrays fundamentally that this is the only card that they've got for 2022 because the American people can see with their own eyes the disaster of the ruling class's agenda, and they don't want to submit to it any longer.